Deep beneath the miles-thick permafrost of Antarctica, one of the coldest and most desolate places on Earth, may lie the remnants of an ancient civilization lost to the sands of time. The journey begins at one of the most mysterious regions on the planet, where science and legend blend like ice and fire. A bold hypothesis is emerging that Antarctica, barren, icy, seemingly uninhabitable, might once have been the cradle of an ancient civilization, now buried beneath millennia of ice. Imagine this: millions of years ago, Antarctica was part of the supercontinent Gondwana, teeming with forests and rivers. Then a geological upheaval, a tectonic shift, or a global cataclysm transformed it into a frozen wasteland. And beneath that thick ice may lie remnants of artificial structures, pyramids, tunnels, forgotten cities. Numerous satellite images have captured pyramid-shaped rock formations. The 16th century PIRI REIS map, a real artifact, appears to depict the Antarctic coastline free of ice. And even bolder theories suggest this may have once been a base for extraterrestrial beings. Of course, mainstream science claims these are misunderstandings, optical illusions, or coincidences. But the curiosity and drive to uncover the unknown are indelible human traits. Something unexplained still waits there beneath the deep ice behind the veil of time. So, what truly lies hidden beneath the Antarctic ice? A forgotten civilization? Evidence of extraterrestrials? Or merely a trick of nature? It's time to dig deeper and confront one of humanity's coldest mysteries. Part 1. Antarctica, the sealed continent. In July 1983, Vostok Research Station recorded the lowest temperature ever known on Earth, 89.6 degrees. A moment when ice didn't just freeze water, but seemed to freeze the very imagination of human life. Yet in that very moment, a question stirred among scientists and fringe researchers alike. Could there exist a lost world beneath the kilometers of ice Antarctica, harsh, uninhabited, without recorded history, suddenly became the epicenter of outrageous theories. The fewer who set foot there, the more rumors took root. Not everyone believes, but it's undeniable that silent white expanse resembles a colossal coffin, perhaps holding secrets sealed since prehistoric times. Could it be that beneath the ice are not only rock and water, but whispers from a forgotten civilization? In the 16th century, a map surfaced quietly, unceremoniously, yet enough to rattle geographic history. It was the map of Admiral PIRI REIS, drawn in 1513. On that ancient skin parchment was a clearly detailed Antarctic coastline without ice. More than 3 centuries before man officially discovered the continent, someone seemed to have seen it, and not in its frozen state. This isn't a joke of history. It strikes at the very core of conventional understanding. If ice has blanketed Antarctica for tens of millions of years, the map shouldn't exist, unless something is being hidden. Alternative theorists believe Antarctica once sat near the equator where life could thrive. A global cataclysm, a crustal displacement, may have shifted it south and instantly froze it. If true Antarctica isn't just a continent, it's a buried memory. The 21st century gave us new ice satellites, infrared imagery, global mapping. And from that, strange discoveries began to surface. In 2006, a Google Earth user spotted what looked like a massive face carved into Antarctic ice. Then a pyramid emerged, perfectly symmetrical. Then structures resembling submerged temples beneath the eternal white. Scientists dismissed them as pareidolia, the brain seeing patterns in randomness. But it's strange how these random patterns appear all at once in one place with uncanny symmetry. People began to wonder, could this be a kind of massive stone map, or traces of ancient architects? The deeper the study, the more unusual coincidences emerged, and with them, whispers of a civilization erased by ice grew louder. But to understand what may have once existed here, we must go back to the time of ancient legends. There is a legend that has accompanied humanity for thousands of years. Atlantis, a powerful kingdom, advanced beyond its era and then suddenly disappeared beneath the ocean in a single night. But what if Atlantis didn't sink into the sea, but froze on land? Recent theories suggest Antarctica may actually be the true location of Atlantis, a once warm, fertile land buried under millions of tons of snow after a global cataclysm. The PIRI REIS map, pyramid-like structures, ancient glacial rivers all appear as puzzle pieces gradually fitting together. If true, the ice isn't just Earth's crust, it's time's crust. The question isn't if anymore, but when will we be ready to excavate it? And as we begin to trace those ancient signs, we touch a legend that holds unmatched allure, the point where fact and myth intersect Atlantis. Part 2. Atlantis, the frozen legend. In 360 BCE, the philosopher Plato wrote about a powerful island far ahead in civilization that was destroyed in just one day and night. He called it Atlantis. At that time, the ancient world considered it merely a symbolic allegory. But over many centuries, as details in Plato's descriptions began to align with geographic and archaeological discoveries, people started to wonder, did Atlantis truly exist? And if so, where did it go? Not beneath the Caribbean Sea or the Atlantic Ocean, but perhaps in the most unexpected place, Antarctica. A land now frozen and desolate, but which might once have been the center of a radiant civilization. This theory, once deemed absurd, is now beginning to attract attention as fragments from ancient maps, satellite images, and the crustal displacement hypothesis start to converge. If Plato was right, then we are not just searching for Atlantis, but we might already be walking on it, just not deep enough to see. In 1958, researcher Charles Hapgood proposed a bold idea that the Earth's crust could have shifted rapidly due to the accumulation of ice mass. He suggested this could have pushed a landmass from near the equator, where the climate was warm and suitable for life, all the way to Antarctica. This hypothesis not only explains the sudden freezing, but also opens up an astonishing possibility. An advanced civilization may have once existed where Antarctica is now and was wiped out in just a few days. The concept of a global catastrophe that caused the disappearance of the Atlantis continent is no longer fantasy, but possibly a real geological event. If that land was Antarctica, then we are not speaking of a mythical empire sunk beneath the sea, but a frozen Atlantis, still there, intact, beneath the ice, like a massive sealed museum. And as science gets closer to the ice core, we might soon open a door that humanity shut tens of thousands of years ago. What makes the Atlantis-Antarctica theory even more fascinating is the strange correlation between Plato's details and real geography. He described Atlantis as having concentric circular shapes, something radar images have reportedly detected beneath the ice in Queen Maud Land, Antarctica. He wrote about canals linking ringed islands possibly formed by ancient fossilized glacial rivers. And he mentioned a civilization with technology far ahead of its time, something that might be echoed today in sharply defined structures lying beneath Antarctica's surface. This is when science and legend begin to meet. When clues from Plato, the PIRI REIS map, and satellite imagery all point in the same direction, we can no longer call it mere coincidence. Instead, we must begin to ask, have we misread history? Perhaps Atlantis did exist, only we lost its real location, and that place is now frozen, waiting to be revealed. If Atlantis really existed, and if it now lies dormant beneath Antarctica's ice, then the final question is no longer where is it, but who lived there. Those who support ancient civilization theories believe Atlantis was not just a human empire, but the center of a civilization so advanced it goes beyond our imagination. Some even suggest, could this have been a crossing point between Earth and beings not from this planet? That question might invite skepticism, but take another look. Concentric architecture complex, canal systems, strange energy mentioned in ancient texts. All of it seems out of place for the era we assume humanity emerged. Maybe we are not just confronting Atlantis, but facing evidence that we were not the only ones who ever called Earth home. And if that's true, then the next mystery to solve is who drew the first world map and what did they see? Part 3. PIRI erased the map that should not exist. In 1929, within the archives of Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, scholars discovered a strange map drawn on gazelle skin. Upon closer analysis, they realized it was part of a world map created by an Ottoman admiral in 1513, the cartographer PIRI REIS. That name had long faded into obscurity. Until scientists discovered the impossible, the map depicts the South American coast with near-perfect accuracy, including parts of the Antarctic shoreline, something humanity wouldn't officially discover for over 300 more years. Moreover, the southern landmass shown on the map was ice-free. The immediate question arose, how could someone in the 16th century know what only modern satellites have confirmed? Explanations like oral tradition or compilation of older maps proved unconvincing. This map should not exist. Yet there it lies in a museum in plain reality, and like all illogical relics, it shakes the foundations of mainstream history. PIRI REIS did not discover the world himself. He was an admiral, a collector of ancient maps from various civilizations, Greek, Roman, Arab, and many others. In his annotations, he claimed that his map was compiled from approximately 20 different sources, including some that were very ancient. The question then arises, where did those sources come from? And who originally drew a map with such precise details of Antarctica's coastline, when that landmass has supposedly been covered in ice for tens of millions of years? Researchers like Hapgood believe the map is the last remaining legacy of a lost civilization, one with the ability to observe geography from above, much like today's satellites. Perhaps they were the Atlanteans, or perhaps a race even further beyond our imagination. Cartographic knowledge once spanning the globe, now surviving only as a fragment of dry ancient parchment. The real question is, if we once possessed this knowledge, who or what made us forget it? The PIRI REIS map sparks debate not just for what it depicts, but how it depicts it. Though drawn in the 16th century, the map uses projection techniques that weren't mastered by modern science until the 20th century. Some grid lines show the ability to calculate longitude, something sailors of that time could not yet accurately achieve. Additionally, mountain ranges invisible from the coastline are rendered with stunning precision. Many believe this could only be achieved through aerial observation, but who could fly? In 1513, no one, unless the original cartographer did not live in 1513. Perhaps they came from another era, a civilization that once soared above the lands, charted everything, and then vanished. If true, the map is not just a navigational tool, but a photographic memory of Earth passed down through human hands across time. And now, when we look at this map, we no longer see a historical artifact, but a challenge. It is not silent. It asks questions. It forces us to rethink every concept of time discovery, and even first human. It makes us wonder, are we living on ruins we don't even recognize? If what PIRI REIS depicted is real, then the civilization that first mapped the world must have existed before the most recent ice age. And if that's the case, they must have known Earth was round, observed it from space, and explored it entirely before human history was ever recorded. The more we look at this map, the more we realize we may not be the first to walk this planet. And from this very map, stories of impossible structures begin to emerge, especially in Egypt, where ancient stones still echo the whispers of stars. Part 4. Giza Pyramids and Celestial Symbolism. In 1925, an archaeological team stood beneath the scorching sun on the Giza Plateau, gazing up at the summit of the Khufu Pyramid, and noted a strange coincidence. All four sides of the pyramid were nearly perfect, deviating by less than 2 centimeters, and precisely aligned to the 4 cardinal directions, north, southeast, and west. This feat was achieved 400 and 500 years ago. But how? No laser measurement, no telescopes, not even the wheel. What remained was absolute precision, a level of accuracy that even modern engineers struggle to replicate. Yet the mystery isn't just in the stone. When night falls, researchers look to the sky and realize the 3 pyramids of Giza align with the three stars in Orion's belt an eerie coincidence? Could it be that these colossal stone structures were not merely tombs, but celestial maps carved into the earth? If so, who left behind this message in stone? And what were they pointing to among the stars? In 1994, researchers Robert Bovoy and Adrian Gilbert introduced the Orion correlation theory, suggesting that the three major pyramids at Giza not only align with the three stars in Orion's belt, but mirror their positions in the sky as they appeared in 10 to 500 BCE. However, what made this theory groundbreaking was not the astronomical projection, but the timeline it implied. Because if the pyramids were truly built to match the stars' arrangement in 10 to 500 BCE, what does that mean? That the ancient Egyptians existed thousands of years earlier than believed, or that they were merely restoring a pre-existing structure, one inherited from a lost civilization? The star shafts and ventilation channels within the pyramid point precisely to stars like Sirius, Orion and Polaris, alignments too exact to be accidental. All of this suggests that architecture and astronomy at Giza were inextricably connected. The question is no longer was it intentional, but how did they acquire such knowledge? Inside the Khufu pyramid is a space not meant for ordinary mortals. The king's chamber, the queen's chamber, descending passageways, and perfectly straight air shafts that pierce hundreds of meters of stone, all were constructed with a level of precision that modern engineers still marvel at. Yet more strangely, some researchers argue those shafts weren't really for ventilation, but for navigation. They align directly with sacred stars, such as Orion, the god Osiris, and Sirius, the goddess Isis. It's possible the builders believed the soul of the dead would be guided by these stellar paths back to the heavens. But there's a bolder hypothesis that the pyramid functioned as an energy transmitter or an astronomical signal station designed to communicate or interact with a cosmic force. That may sound like science fiction, but when you combine stellar alignments, mathematical precision, and impossible architecture, it forces serious questions. Who really designed this structure? If the pyramids are a kind of signal, then to whom are they addressed? Or from whom were they left behind? Some unorthodox researchers suggest the Giza structures are not tombs, but a cosmic code. These theories are fueled by unexplained features. Why does the resonance frequency in the king's chamber match that of Earth? Why are the star shafts precise, down to minutes of arc? And why has no mummy ever been found inside the Khufu pyramid? Perhaps Giza is the product of a civilization that ancient Egypt merely inherited. A civilization that once walked among the stars, measured celestial distances by eye, and carved a language into stone that we have yet to decode. And if that's true, then the next question is inevitable. Were these celestial architects confined to Egypt? Or did they once appear in other lands like the ancient shores of India, where a city swallowed by the sea is beginning to rise again? Part 5. Dwarka, the city of Lord Krishna. In 2001, off the coast of Gujarat, India, an underwater archaeological team began what was meant to be a simple sonar survey. But what they discovered stunned the entire archaeological world, a series of stone structures lying nearly 40 meters beneath the water, arranged in straight lines, right angles, and bearing the appearance of the ruins of an ancient city. One name immediately came to mind for many: Dwarka, the legendary city mentioned in the Mahabharata, where Lord Krishna once ruled. According to legend, after Krishna departed from the mortal world, Dwarka was swallowed by the sea as a divine judgment. Until then, it had always been considered just a myth, until modern technology revealed the opposite. Lying beneath the waves was physical evidence that an ancient city may indeed have existed. It wasn't just a few stones, but streets, fortification walls, and large-scale architectural blocks. Divers later recovered pottery shards, stone pestles, figurines, and even a piece of fossilized ancient wood, a rare material used for dating. When sent for radiocarbon analysis, the results shocked the academic world. Around 500 years old, older than the Harappan civilization, and far predating the estimated timeline of the Mahabharata. The question was no longer, did Dwarka exist, But how wrong have we been about ancient timelines? If a city could lie submerged for over 7,000 years, what else is still sleeping beneath the oceans? The discoveries at DWARKA force scholars to reassess all assumptions about prehistoric civilizations. Most importantly, it showed myths are not always legends. Sometimes they are collective memories of humanity passed down through symbols and poetry when history had yet to be written. What makes DWARKA even more compelling is how its layout matches descriptions in ancient texts. As if following a blueprint, 900,000 palaces, marble-paved streets, golden gates, an underground water system, and countless temples. It sounds like mythology, but underwater structures closely match details from the Mahabharata. Some scholars once claimed DWARKA was a metaphor for an ideal city, but with verified physical evidence, they were forced to admit perhaps it's a record of a glorious time that truly existed. The evidence suggests the city didn't sink due to gradual erosion, but rather a large-scale catastrophe, possibly an earthquake or tsunami. Strangely, the city's disappearance coincides with the moment Krishna is said to have departed the world. Could there be a link between divine figures and ancient cataclysms? And if so, was Krishna merely symbolic or a remnant of a special race that once lived among humans? If Krishna was a real being and DWARKA a high-tech city hidden in legend, then we stand at a turning point redefining the boundary between mythology and archaeology. Some scholars now propose that Krishna was not just a mythical figure, but a leader from a highly advanced civilization, perhaps an extraterrestrial, or a descendant of an ancient race. Details like radiant weapons, flying chariots, or vortex energy rings in the Mahabharata are now being viewed through a scientific lens, not as metaphors, but as references to technology. If true, then DWARKA is not merely a sunken city, but an advanced engineering hub erased from human memory. Yet every trace leaves a trail. And from the Arabian Sea, that trail leads directly to the Indus River, where another civilization even more mysterious waits to be deciphered, Harappa. Part 6. Harappa, a civilization silenced before it spoke. In 1921 in Punjab, now part of Pakistan, archaeologists discovered the foundations of a massive ancient city. It was named Harappa. A few years later, another city was excavated, Mohenjo-daro. Both belong to a civilization never recorded in any ancient text. No one mentioned them. Yet they had existed with two-story homes, underground sewage systems, private wells in each household, and public bathhouses. No evidence of war, no royal tombs, no theocracy. Only a society that was orderly, clean, and remarkably advanced. What stunned scholars most was the uniformity from India to Afghanistan. Every city followed the same measurement system, the same architectural standards. And then, it all vanished, as if they had never been there. No farewell. And most mysterious of all, their writing system, a script that has never been decoded, never spoken aloud, as if they had left behind a message we're not yet ready to understand. For over a century, researchers have tried to decipher Harappa's hieroglyphic script symbols, carved onto stone, pottery, seals, and everyday objects. But despite modern technology, no one has been able to translate even a single sentence. No long texts, no bilingual versions like a Rosetta Stone. Only repeating symbols, trees, fish, humans, hybrid creatures alongside spirals, dots, and strange hooked lines. Some scholars began to doubt, was this even a writing system or a metaphysical code meant only for those who already knew how to read it? Perhaps it was a symbolic language used for rituals or to record concepts beyond verbal expression. There's also a theory that Harappa once communicated with the Sumerians, who also used symbolic scripts, and that both may have shared a primordial language. But if so, why did both civilizations disappear? Perhaps they didn't simply collapse. They withdrew when their time had come to an end. The disappearance of Harappa is unlike that of any other civilization. No evidence of war, no mass graves, no surviving religious monuments. All that remains are crumbling walls, clogged drains, and a city quietly eroded by time. Some researchers believe climate change, prolonged drought, or the drying of the Saraswati River may have deprived Harappa of water, but something feels off. If a civilization could build advanced sewage systems thousands of years before Christ, could they not adapt? Could they not organize a structured migration? Or did they choose to vanish to avoid something? Or perhaps this civilization was built by a group who came from elsewhere, and when their mission was complete, they left behind symbols, architecture, and withdrew. Harappa seems like a civilization waiting to be unlocked, and the key is not in artifacts, but in our perception of the past. And like every song's silence before its final note, Harappa left behind a quiet but profound resonance. A civilization with no wars, no empire, no epic tales. They lived and then disappeared. Yet the way they structured their cities, the way they arranged their society, now leads many to ask, is true progress found in technology or in harmony? Perhaps Harappa wasn't a civilization of the future, but a memory from a time when humans once lived by higher principles. And if that's true, then they weren't victims, they were guardians. Guardians who carried knowledge, sealed it in stone and symbols, and waited for the day someone capable would unlock it. And if all that is true, then what once existed alongside them was something not stored in symbols, but in legends, flaming, flying machines, gods who controlled the skies. The things the Vedic people called Vimana. Part 7. Vimana, ancient technology or flying legend around 3,000 years ago in the sacred hymns of the Rig Veda, one of humanity's oldest religious texts. A strange word appears, Vimana. Vimana is defined as a flying chariot, a vehicle that could move through the air, cross obstacles, and at times vanish and reappear in the blink of an eye. In the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, Vimanas appear frequently as part of divine life. They were circular flying machines emitting light operated by sound or solar energy. Some scriptures even describe battles between Vimanas where they fired beams of light that incinerated everything and unleashed firestorms that shook the earth and sky. Sounds like modern weaponry, strikingly so. But the strangest part is these descriptions were written when humanity hadn't even discovered iron, let alone jet propulsion. The question is, how could ancient people imagine machines thousands of years ahead of their time? One particularly startling text, the Vimana Shastra, is believed to be a technical manual for Vimanas. It lists detailed schematics, flight principles, even specific metals and crystals required for construction. This manuscript was channeled in the early 20th century, but its content baffles many energy separation techniques, aerodynamics, anti-gravity, and cockpit designs. Although its historical authenticity remains debated, the Vimana Shastra sparked a compelling theory. What if the ancients weren't imagining? What if they were describing what they had seen? The gods in mythology may have been highly technological beings, and their flying vehicles, blazing eyes and cosmic weapons were simply technological phenomena beyond ancient vocabulary. If that's true, then Vimanas are not just vehicles. They're evidence that humanity once had access to knowledge far beyond its age, but that knowledge was lost. And the next question becomes, who brought that knowledge here? Some modern scholars and fringe researchers propose a daring hypothesis. Vimanas were technological devices from an alien civilization that once visited Earth. They point to ancient statues and petroglyphs across the globe from India to South America, featuring flying beings, disc-shaped objects, and humanoid figures that don't resemble humans. Is this collective imagination or encoded memory through symbolism? In theory, if prehistoric humans encountered extraterrestrial beings they interpreted as gods, then recording Vimana imagery was an attempt to preserve that memory. But just like Atlantis, just like Harappa, all of it disappeared. No remaining machines, no wreckage, no physical proof. Only stories, stone carvings and texts rich in metaphor. Perhaps Vimanas no longer exist, but the knowledge of them still flickers in the ancient cultures. Part 8. A mother civilization, the flow that connected the world. When you place ancient archaeological maps side by side, Egypt, Sumer, Harappa, Mesoamerica, a strange pattern appears. They emerged around the same time and vanished together. Not through linear evolution, but as if someone had planted seeds in many places at once. Pyramids in Egypt and Central America, different continents, same structure. Hieroglyphic systems not identical, but all based on symbolic encoding. Astronomical alignments found in Giza, Teotihuacan Angkor Wat structures, thousands of kilometers apart, yet sharing the same way of observing the sky. Is this independent evolution, or fragments of a shared ancient knowledge lost over time? Some researchers call it the mother civilization, a prehistoric era, when humanity reached a peak before being wiped out by a global event. Survivors carried fragments of that knowledge to new lands where they rebuilt, simplified, or mythologized what once was. Ancient texts from many cultures speak of a golden age, a time when humans lived in harmony with the universe, could communicate with the stars, and possessed unimaginable technologies. In Sumerian epics, there are the Anunnaki, beings from the sky who taught humans to farm and build. In the Vedas, the Devas and Asuras. In Egyptian legend, Thoth, the god of wisdom who brought knowledge to mankind. Too many coincidences from too many different sources. Some scholars hypothesize these were memories of the same group, a race with superior knowledge that once walked the earth in a forgotten era. They may not have been extraterrestrials, but rather descendants of a lost terrestrial civilization, one we have never formally recognized. But they left traces, not tools, but architecture symbols, myths, and astronomy. A network of encoded knowledge stretching across continents, waiting to be reassembled like a puzzle missing its final pieces. And when we look back at the entire picture from the Antarctic ice to the sands of Giza, from the Arabian Sea to the Andes Plateau, a pattern starts to form. Civilizations were not isolated, but branches stemming from a common root. A giant tree whose trunk was broken, leaving only scattered branches and leaves. And like all rivers, these traces flow back toward the source. That source might be a mother civilization where architecture, astronomy, mathematics, and language were one. But more importantly, it reminds us what we call myths are often just history waiting to be uncovered. When the ice melts, when the sands are swept away, when we decode the ancient symbols, we might realize we are not the pinnacle, but only the inheritors of something far greater. The journey into the past isn't ending, it's just beginning. Because in the night sky, the stars are still waiting for us to unlock their message. We have just completed an extraordinary journey from the frozen expanse of Antarctica to the sands of Egypt, from the legendary sunken city of DWARKA to the fully planned urban network of HARAPPA. Each ancient trace, each controversial theory, each unexplained phenomenon all come together like mysterious fragments, gradually revealing a past that may be vastly different from what we've been taught. History, after all, is not a fixed sequence of events, but a collection of stories told by the victors, accepted by the majority, and perpetuated through repetition. But then, strange maps like PIRI race pyramids beneath the ice, or Harappa's sophisticated measuring systems, make us pause and ask, what if what we know is just the tip of the historical iceberg? Perhaps prehistoric civilizations did exist, intelligent, advanced, and then disappeared. Perhaps the gods in ancient texts were merely the way early people interpreted technologies they couldn't understand. Or simply perhaps the history we've trusted all this time needs to be rewritten with questions, with skepticism, and with courage. So who will do that? Who will be the heretic, the one brave enough to break the mold? Challenge old beliefs and ask, what if everything you ever believed was wrong? If you're still sitting here thinking, questioning, then perhaps you are that person. Because in the end, those who are seen as mad today are often the ones we call geniuses tomorrow. Keep digging, keep questioning, and never stop doubting. Because history never ends, it's merely waiting for someone brave enough to rediscover it from the beginning.